As Rachel mentioned, we're in a series that we've been through this fall on the stories of Elisha and Elijah and the kings that they interact with. And this morning we are in 2 Kings chapter 6 about an incredible story of Elisha's interactions with the Arameans. That is on page 575 in your pew Bibles. Listen to the story. Now the king of Aram was at war with Israel. After conferring with his officers, he said, "I will set up my camp at such and such a place." So the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, "Beware of passing this place, because the Arameans are going down there." So the king of Israel checked on the place indicated by Elisha, the man of God, and time and again Elisha warned the king so that he was on his guard in such places. This enraged the king of Aram. He summoned his officers and demanded, "Tell me, which of us is on the side of the king of Israel?" "None of us, my lord the king," said one of his officers. "But Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the very words you speak in your bedroom." "Go, find out where he is," the king ordered, "so I can send men and capture him." The report came back, "He is in Dothan." So the king sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with chariots and horses surrounded the city. "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked, and he saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, "Strike this army with blindness." So he struck them with blindness, as Elisha had asked. Elisha told them, "This is not the road, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you're looking for." So he led them into Samaria. After they entered the city, Elisha said, "Lord, open the eyes of these men so they can see." Then the Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and there they were, inside Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he asked Elisha, "Shall I kill them, my father? Shall I kill them?" "Do not kill them," he answered. "Would you kill those you have captured with your own sword or bow? Set water and food before them so that they may eat and drink and go back to their master." So he prepared a great feast for them, and after they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away, and they returned to their master. So the bands from Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. About 2,500 years ago, on the other side of the world, a Chinese general and military strategist named Sun Tzu was writing down his practical advice and his philosophy for waging war. His book is called The Art of War, and even today in some circles, people consult this book. Military leaders, coaches, business people alike look at this collection of sayings from time to time. One of them says this: "In the practical art of war, the best thing to do is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. It's better to recapture an army entire than to destroy it. Therefore, a skillful leader will subdue the enemy's troops without any fighting. He captures cities without laying siege to them, and with forces intact, he will dispute the mastery of the empire. And without losing a man, his triumph will be complete." For the general who strategizes and plans and anticipates and counts the cost of war, a casualty-free surrender Sounds almost too good to be true. The end of our story today goes even farther than a casualty-free surrender, and frankly, I'm not sure the way this story ends could find its way into Sun Tzu's philosophy. Because this story of ludicrous generosity toward a captured people could only be God's story. Who feeds a contained army and sends them on their way? But that's exactly what happens in our story. Through the prophet Elisha, God reassures his terrified people, the servant of Elisha, by making invisible help visible. And then, with a surprising offer of mercy, he turns an enemy army into a peaceable neighbor. Let's listen again to what happens. The king of Aram has had this problem on his hands because every day he sends out bands of soldiers to raid Israel's border towns. And every night they come back empty-handed, chased off by the forces of Israel. The writer of Kings tells us in Hebrew this happens not once and not twice, but over and over and over and over. Israel's defense is so targeted, so impenetrable. Each carefully planned incursion is handily routed, and the king is tearing out his hair. How on earth is it that Israel could possibly be anticipating his invasion? So the king goes to his war room, he works with his counselors, he studies maps, he talks strategy, and one night it hits him. He sits up at 2 a.m. drenched in a cold sweat, fear gripping his heart. Because he's come to the only logical conclusion that all must not be secure on his council. Somewhere, somehow, one of his advisors must have loose lips. He hates to think of it, but he knows it's the only reasonable possibility. So the next morning, he calls everyone together and he says, "We seem to have an information leak around here. Somebody seems to be sharing intelligence with the king of Israel. Would anyone like to volunteer any information? Is it you, Captain? Is it you, Major? How about General Naaman?" His men sit in silence until a quiet and brave voice pipes up. "No, my lord the king, none of us are spies, but it's that Israelite prophet Elisha. He can tell the king of Israel the things you whisper in your very bedroom." "Elisha," the king of Aram says to himself. "Find him," he orders his men, "and capture him and bring him to me." So carts of supplies are loaded up, chariot axles are greased, horses are examined for soundness, and under the cover of darkness, a military force from Aram assembles. They're dispatched to Dothan, where Elisha is living. And as dawn breaks and Elisha's servant opens the front door to go outside to get some water, he peers through the morning gloom and he sees something that makes his heart quake. He turns his neck in every direction, and everywhere he looks, he sees a problem. To the north and east and south and west, enemy forces are aligned against Dothan. "Oh, no, 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 no," he says. He dashes home and flings open the door and encounters his master, Elisha. "Master, Elisha, look outside. What are we going to do about this?" And Elisha sits quietly on a floor cushion, sunlight just starting to creep across the room. On any other morning, his tea would have been ready by now, and if it had been, he would have sipped it slowly. "What will we do?" "What will we do?" he says. "Well, I'll tell you what we won't do. We won't be afraid. We won't be afraid. There is no need. Our side outnumbers theirs." The servant gapes at Elijah. Our side? Our side. What has he missed? He gets to his feet and he goes to the window, strains his ears for the clink of Israelite weaponry, for the tramp of soldiers' feet in the streets. Nothing. There are no battle cries from Aram yet, but no sign of friendly forces either. Elisha joins him at the window, and together they look out. Elisha prays, Lord, open his eyes so that he may see. And just like that, a curtain rises on an invisible world. On the horizon, points of light come into glimmering focus in the form of horses and chariots and heavenly hosts in vast array surrounding the city. Aflame with glory and power, attentive to the command of God, assembled to protect and defend Elisha. Those who are with us, Elisha says, are more than those who are with them. At that moment, Aram makes its move, pressing in and tightening the perimeter around Dothan. Elisha notices a delegation coming for the city gate, and he goes out to meet it. I wonder what the servant expected Elisha to do between that moment of recognition and the moment of attack. Might he call down fire from heaven, as Elijah once did? Might he ask for cover from these enemy soldiers so that the two of them can escape into the wilderness? Strike this people with blindness is a creative prayer. Might not be the first defense tactic you'd think of, but that's exactly what Elisha asks for, a shield of obscurity. The word the writer of 2 Kings uses for blindness right there is sanvarim. It's different from another Hebrew word for blindness, iveron. Iveron is more often used for the condition of being unable to see, and sanvarim for a striking act of God. The only other time sanvarim shows up in the Old Testament is in Genesis 19, where God strikes the bad characters outside Lot's door who are planning to attack his guests, strikes them with blindness so they can't find the door to the house. This kind of blindness shows up in stories where God's people or their representatives face overwhelming hostility, where they can't protect themselves. And it shows the power of God's supernatural protection without human violence happening. Another blinding kind of like this happens in the Bible in the New Testament. Maybe you can think of it. Saul on the road to Damascus. Saul has been hauling off Jesus' people who are seeking to serve him faithfully, putting them in prison. And Jesus appears in a blinding light to Saul on the Damascus road and stops his aggression against God's people, turns his eyes to see something quite different. This blinding protects God's people, gives their enemies an opportunity to see, even in their blindness, to recognize the power of the one true God. So God answers Elisha's prayer right there by blinding the eyes of the Arameans. This isn't the road, he tells them, and this is not the city, but follow me, and I will take you to the land you're looking for. And so this completely disoriented, disheveled, befuddled group of Aramean soldiers follows Elisha 12 miles down the road to Samaria, the enemy capital for them. And there inside the city walls, Elisha prays again. A prayer that probably by this time sounds strangely familiar to us. This time the prayer is for the Aramean army. Lord, open their eyes so that they can see. The writer of 2 Kings doesn't tell us anything about the Arameans' response to having their eyes opened and realizing that they're surrounded in the enemy capital. They could feel much as Elisha's servant did, trapped in Dothan, completely overpowered, surrounded, and frightened. because the Arameans' eyes open not to see the protective forces of God on their side, but the king of Israel, an opposing human foe who's ready to strike them down and kill them. Elisha tells the Israelite king, "Put your weapons away." Sounds strangely New Testamentish. Put your weapons away. Did you capture these soldiers? What gives you the right to strike them down? You give them something to eat. To his credit, the king of Israel, who has just threatened them with death, turns on a dime. He obeys God's command given through Elisha and wastes no time and spares no expense. He orders so much more than bread and water for these prisoners of war. A lavish feast set before the enemy. The end result of this conflict is the best outcome Israel could have even hoped for, better even than prevailing in battle. Nobody dies. Everybody eats. And the raids on the town stop too. For both Elisha's servant and the Aramean army, God's yes to prayers for sight open spiritual and physical eyes. God's yes gives Elisha's servant night vision, spiritual night vision. It lets him see the reality of God's kingdom beyond what's visible to him. Seeing the help of God all around him quells his fear. The servant is safe. He's given the gift of wonder as he witnesses God's protection in the midst of danger and hostility as he serves him. God's yes to restoring the Arameans' sight has physical ramifications that we saw. They can actually see the reality of the human army, human captors around them. But it has spiritual overtones too. The Arameans, adversaries of God's people, have now had a firsthand encounter with the Lord, the God who has the power of sight and blindness in his hand. In Samaria, the Arameans see their own powerlessness, their need for mercy captured in an enemy territory. Help comes to them. They receive it. It takes no stretch of our imaginations at all to think that those Aramean soldiers went back home and had some things to share with their families. Let me tell you, children, about the prophet Elisha and about his God. For both insider Israelites and outsider Aramean, deliverance comes. Saving from danger that they could not get themselves out of comes. Deliverance not by power in battle, but through God's protection, through the gift of clearly seeing a need for help and trusting God to supply it. Both those already among the people of God, seeking to serve him faithfully, and those who cannot yet see the reality of this God, need him to give them sight. Open their eyes, Lord, so that they may see. What about us? Is Elisha's prayer only for long ago and far away? I hope not. I think people of every generation need God-given sight. I know that I certainly do. All of us need God's help to live in hope, especially when we're afraid. The Apostle Paul tells the congregation at Ephesus, "I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which God has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, and his incomparably great power for us who believe." Our battles might not be literal army battles, but I bet you know a thing or two about fighting. Maybe you get up every morning to fight through the day at a job you don't enjoy. You find it hard to respect your boss. You don't like your tasks. You have more to do than time to do it. You worry about paying your bills. You're not sure if the direction of the company squares with you anymore. And it would be so understandable for you to look at those forces arrayed against you and say, "Oh Lord, what will we do? Oh Lord, what will we do?" Or maybe you're in a season of grappling with fear about your future. Maybe you have physical challenges that don't have clear answers or solutions. Maybe you wait on pins and needles for test results of someone you love dearly. Or you watch as someone you've poured your life into seems to make bad choice after bad choice. And you're full of anxiety. The anxiety that needs to be channeled into helpful activity. And with Elisha's servant, you say, "Oh Lord, what will we do?" And in the times when you ask that, before you do anything else, hear God's command through Elisha. Don't be afraid. Hear, "Don't be afraid," the command echoed by angels. Slow your pulse and settle your breathing. And hear, "Don't be afraid," spoken by Jesus. Don't be afraid seems to be this pesky command that always comes around at times when fear makes the most sense, humanly speaking. And then ask the Lord to open your eyes. Open my eyes, Lord, so that I can see that you are here, that you are for me, that you are with me, that as I serve you, you will help me and show me the way. I wonder what helps you remember the invisible help of God when things are dark or hard. Henry Nouwen tells the story of an artwork created for a monastery in the 15th century in Russia. And I like the story because it talks about the backstory of why this work needed to be created. The painting shows the three members of the Trinity visiting with Abraham when they come to tell him, the angel messengers come to tell Abraham that he and Sarah will have a son. The three members of the Trinity are seated here, and there is space at the table for the viewer to come into the picture, to join in. And although our tradition is word and not image-centered, many people in our church are artists, and I know that you offer your artwork as an act of worship and spiritual discipline. I like the way Rublev's art encouraged people to look at their circumstances differently, to stay grounded in God. Listen to this. Long ago in Russia, Nouwen writes, there were many attacks made on a small town, and the monks got very nervous. They couldn't concentrate on their prayers because of these violent conflicts that were happening around them, and so the abbot called his icon painter to paint an icon that would help the monks remain prayerful in the midst of trouble, restlessness, and anxiety. The icon is based on the three angels' visit to Abraham around a table of hospitality. Together, the three figures form a mysterious circle of movement, and when the monks allowed themselves to enter in imaginatively to that community formed by the three figures, drawn into the circle of safety and love, they were more able to pray and not lose heart. Open our eyes, Lord. Friends, in the battle with our greatest adversary, before we could ever see him or ever even know that we needed him, Jesus was there. When the power of sin tightened around us, Jesus came to our defense. When we were blinded to his goodness and wanted to go our own way, Jesus came and he said, "Take my hand and I will show you the way. Follow me." When we found ourselves under threat of punishment, Jesus spread a table out for us, his enemies, in the shadow of the cross. And there we are held and kept and reassured by the one who is in us, because he is greater than anything in this world. Let's pray. God, you are powerful and you are infinite and you are invisible. And sometimes, very often even, we don't see what you're up to. But we ask you, as we seek to serve you faithfully, to open our eyes, to help us to know your nearness, your goodness, your protection, your love, your encouragement, and your correction. You are never far, and you are always leading us home. In Jesus' name, amen.